This is an express train, and the next stop is TMG.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to TMG. I'm your host, Travis Patton Sr. I enjoy discovering and sharing real-life moments of inspiration from everyday people. And this show is about finding moments of inspiration for our everyday lives. And look, and if you're going to tell me something, then tell me something good. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of TMG. That's Tell Me Something Good. I'm your host, Travis Patton Sr. Guys, real quick, don't forget to visit our Facebook page. That's Tell Me Something Good with the capital T. Guys, I'm super excited to be here today, and I know you may be saying, Travis, you are always excited to be here. Well, yeah, I am. Super excited. Listen, before we get started, as always, I got to give a shout out to my best supporter and my biggest fan, Nicole, my lovely wife. Girl, that's your shout out. I know you're watching. I know you're listening. Listen, if you've been tuning in to the show, let me tell you, thank you so much for watching, for listening each week. Each week at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, we go live from Facebook, guys. So if you've been watching each week, thank you so much. And if this is your first time tuning in, let me tell you, thank you for joining the show. In a very short time, the show has really taken off, and it's been heard in countries all around the globe, like Nepal, Spain. Guys, I'm so glad, so happy that you're watching and tuning in. Guys, we have a very, very good episode tonight. We're talking about tonight is talking about, guys, we're going to talk about, you got it? Did you catch it? The guys, today we're going to talk about trigger happy. Now, I know a lot of us have heard of the term trigger happy and exactly what does it mean. You know, have you ever heard of somebody that is trigger happy? And when I think of something being trigger happy, something that's quick to react or quick to respond, I kind of think of a Venus flytrap. Yeah, think of a Venus flytrap. That's one of those plants, guys, that when insects get caught in it, it kind of traps and closes them. I want to show you what I mean when I talk about a Venus flytrap. That's what I'm talking about trigger happy. What are some of your triggers that may be triggering you? What are some things that may be setting you off and you want to be able to control it so you don't get trapped like the fly? Guys, I have a very special guest tonight that I'm going to bring on, Dr. Laurie Singer. She's going to come on and bring and share some information. Guys, right before I bring her on, I want you to listen to something that she had to say.
Them some type of hope, and that's what cognitive behavioral therapy does in itself. It tries to teach you the thought process. If there's just a little bit of hope that you can focus on rather than becoming hyper-focused on the negative, then that's what we need to retrain your thought process to do.
Guys, that was Dr. Laurie Singer. And look who we have on the camera, guys. Look who we have joining us today, Dr. Laurie Singer. How are you doing today, Doc?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Travis. I'm excited to be here.
I just want to clarify one thing. I am a licensed psychotherapist and board certified behavioral analyst. I do not have a doctorate in psychology, so I don't want to misrepresent myself.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We are glad that you are joining us tonight, and we're talking about trigger happy. Things that set us off really quickly, one way or the other. Sometimes triggers can make us respond negatively or become angry, and usually when we think about triggers, we think about a negative response. We think about someone becoming angry. It also could response of in tears. Someone could be sad. So let us know a little bit about you, Doc Laurie. Let us know a little bit about you.
Okay, well, about me, I got into this field a very long time ago, and unfortunately had to do with the death of my son. I had a son that passed away at 2 years old, and I was an avid runner and athlete, which I still am. The local college asked me to come and run for their cross country team.
Hmm.
I was very reluctant because I was a horrible student. I barely graduated high school because I was undiagnosed at that time. I have ADHD and a learning disability. So I just thought, honestly, I thought I was not a bright person at all.
Right,
And
right,
it was unfortunate, but I think a lot of people try to get by with what they can. At least later on in life, I was able to learn how to study.
right.
I applied my skills as an athlete to studying, and it was amazing, Travis. I was able to graduate my junior college as valedictorian, attend
Uh huh.
UCLA, end up having my own practice.
Yeah,
But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to help people. That's what it came down to.
absolutely.
When my son got ill and I saw the other parents and how they suffered, the other families and the other siblings, and even how when somebody has a disability, they're treated
Correct.
differently,
Absolutely.
unfortunately. And so I wanted to see how can we retrain the brain to think of something positive no matter how your situation looks, and how do you get out of it? How do you
Absolutely.
get out of that mindset?
That's amazing. First of all, congratulations. I mean, you overcame so many obstacles that would have had most people feeling, left out of society, would have feeling left out of this life, so to speak, and they would have not participated in their own life. And you participated in your life in the direction that you wanted things to go, regardless of what have happened to you, whether it was your fault or not your fault. You took charge of things, and to me, that is absolutely to be celebrated. I know you celebrate that every day.
Thank you. And I believe that cognitive behavioral therapy is about changing that mindset and empowering people and letting them know that they do have control over their thoughts and their behavior. So that's where I think the two modalities that I practice, the cognitive
Hmm.
behavioral part, which how do we change our emotions? Because as you said in the beginning, a thought in our head creates an emotion, and those emotions are exhibited through our behavior. It can be happy, or it can be sad, or it can actually be destructive. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm gonna ask you this question before. Well, I won't jump into it just yet. I won't jump into it just yet because I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
I know,
Um,
I know.
when I played the video before we began, I played a video of a fly getting caught in a Venus flytrap. And when I was in school, I learned a lot about the Venus flytraps and things like that. And I thought about it, and to me, isn't it kind of that way that our triggers kind of sometimes can kind of act like that? Our triggers can kind of be like a Venus flytrap, and it doesn't take very much to set us off. It doesn't take very much for that trap to close, and that's kind of how I see our triggers. Am I kind of close? Am I in the same vein somewhere?
Yeah, I think you're spot on because when people come to see me, they're exhibiting a maladaptive behavior, whether it's social isolation, whether it's skin picking, whether it could be anything. And it's become debilitating, but they don't know what the trigger is to their behavior. So once
That's
you
the
can,
key.
that's the key. So once we can identify what the trigger is, then we can come up with a proactive plan to try to stop you from getting in that Venus flytrap.
Wow, wow. And conversely, on the opposite side of that, sometimes we are the Venus flytrap. You know, sometimes we're reacting. Sometimes we are the ones reacting, but sometimes our triggers, they make us feel like the insect. We're the one trapped by our triggers. You know, most individuals, I would even put this out there, most individuals, even me, I would say me, if I know my triggers, I don't always want to react the way my triggers tell me to react. I don't want to be that insect caught by the Venus flytrap. And sometimes, not only are we the Venus flytrap, sometimes we become the insect. We get trapped by our own selves.
Well, that's true. And so this is where the behavioral part comes in. So the two modalities I use are cognitive behavioral therapy
Hmm.
and behavioral therapy. And you're absolutely right. So in behavioral therapy, how do you change your environment to change your behavior? So in
Correct.
that, right. So you can't just tell yourself, well, you can, but the two modalities work better than you can, but they work better together if you can change your environment. You have to have a replacement behavior. So rather
Mm,
than going into the trap, what are you going to use so that you don't go in the trap? What replacement behavior do you have? Do you you self-talk and say, okay, I know I'm going towards the trap. I'm going to stop. I'm going to make a healthy choice. I'm going to walk away.
right,
So,
right.
so you have to have a replacement behavior or it won't work.
Wow. So what I hear is this a lot of times we we want to address our triggers, but we have to replace it with something to fill that void. Because if we don't, where does that kind of leave us? We're kind of like in limbo because as humans, if we don't replace it, we're gonna go back to our default setting.
That's correct. You're absolutely right. And so the first thing you have to do, well, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that there is a problem. And
Ah,
and even that can be hard. So you had mentioned before, what if you are the trap, or what if you're the person, that can be said in people who are enabling other people.
oh
So they
wow,
could actually be the trap. So it's not just you that has to change your behavior, it's the other people in your life that maybe live in the same household as you.
correct.
And so when families come to see me, I let them know, let's say, little Johnny comes in with his mom, and little Johnny's feeling so bad about himself because of his behavior. And I say, Johnny, it's not just you that has to learn a replacement behavior. It's your mom that has to learn how she's going to react to that behavior. So it's not just you, Johnny, the whole family's going to have to change.
With that statement right there, Lori, you really have changed a lot of people's way they're thinking in their lives. Because a lot of times, and we got to be honest, a lot of times we place the responsibility of change on that one individual. Parents play, I've done it, I've been guilty. You place the responsibility to change on just a child and not take on, no, not include yourself in that same change. So what this tells me is part of that behavioral change, I have to include myself in it. If it's another person, whether it be a relationship or friendship or a child or whatever it is, we have to include ourselves as part of that change. It's not just that one person's individual. I have to have my own. I'm responsible for how I respond as well.
That's correct. And I don't think that parents or spouses or siblings realize how they contribute to the continuation of that person exhibiting the maladaptive behavior. So when a family comes to see me, I like to have everybody take data. on their perspective of what's happening, because everybody has their own perspective.
Absolutely.
And so to analyze, then they come back and we analyze the data together. I gather more information. And from that information is how I write a treatment plan for the family. And Travis, in that treatment plan, my expectations are, and I make the family accountable in practicing the techniques that I have given them. Because a lot of times individuals will attend a therapy session and with their therapist, they will practice the deep breathing and then they're out of the office and they're in different environments. But how can you be expected to come to utilize the techniques you've been taught in a clinical setting
Absolutely.
outside of that setting? And I like to look at it as if you're training for a 10K, you can sign up for the 10K, but you have to practice the days leading up to it. And that's just how it is with cognitive behavioral therapy.
Wow. Wow. So we're talking, guys, we're talking about trigger happy. We're talking about triggers that we all have. And let me ask you a question real quick. And this is me asking, are all triggers related to some type of trauma?
I think that's an interesting question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question. I think maybe initially it was attached to a trauma, and then it becomes habitual over time, and it starts to take on a life of its own. And the trauma could actually be something that is irrational. So it could be something that we've thought like, for example, let's say you're walking down the street and a car is speeding towards you, but it slams on its brakes and it doesn't hit you. So in your mind, you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I walk down the street again, what if there's another speeding car?
Correct. Right.
So
Right.
now you change your route when actually there was no trauma, but your head, those irrational thoughts kept going around and round and created this trauma in your head, a potential trauma. And we can call that anticipatory anxiety because you're anticipating something. So now you don't take that street anymore. But then, Travis, you say, well, this is another busy street. Best not to even walk on the streets. I'm going to call up and have the coffee delivered. So now you've got a whole new set of problems where you have social anxiety, specific phobias, you're not leaving the house. So it could be an actual trauma, or it could be irrational thoughts that are creating this trauma situation.
Wow. Guys, you hear that? And I read that on the anticipatory trauma. I said, wait a minute. You mean you could tell me I can have this anxiety going on, anticipating a problem,
Yes.
anticipating something to go wrong, and it never happens.
No.
But my mind doesn't know that. My mind will respond to the anticipation of a problem as if it was the actual problem itself.
That is correct.
I would feel the same tension. I would feel the same stress. I would be, pulling. Well, if I had hair, I'd be pulling my hair out. We would feel that same. Our muscles would get tense, and nothing's happened.
No, but in our mind, see, our mind is so powerful. And that's what I tell people. When they come to my office, they don't believe that they can control their thoughts. They don't believe it because they've had these irrational thoughts for so long, and it's consumed so much of their time that together I have to tell them they do have the ability. They can control their thoughts, and they just have to practice. And once they do the first time, it's like a weight is lifted off their shoulders, and they can just start to generalize it in other areas of their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask you this question. All right. So we're talking about triggers, right? We're talking about those things that get to us, that things that gets going. It's kind of like sitting in a scare, in a scary movie. It's scary. It triggers you. So let me ask you. Minutes we hear the word triggers, and we might get this image, like I said, of a gun, with a gun or a trigger. When we say triggers, what exactly are we talking about? Are there and so what exactly are triggers then? I mean, we hear about them, we're talking about. So what exactly is a trigger?
I'll give you an example, Travis. So I get a lot of individuals, it's called excoriation, but really what it is called, it's skin picking. So I get a lot of individuals that engage in skin picking, and it's a self-injurious behavior, which
Mm,
didn't start that way, Travis. It started with maybe they saw a blemish on their face, and so they started poking at it. Then they
right.
start feeling for more lumps, and I've seen people that have really done extensive damage to their body
Mm,
with skin picking. It really can be a horrible situation to be in. That's part of the obsessive compulsive behavior, but it
right.
actually has its own title in the DSM. And the DSM is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders. So a trigger, I would want them to take data. When are they most likely to pick their skin? Then I'm finding where the triggers are. The triggers typically are in the bathroom when they're washing their hands and they're looking at their face in the mirror, or they're in the shower. And it's usually, it takes place in the bathroom. It could be watching TV, but typically it's in the bathroom. So I write a specific plan
Mm-hmm.
so that we can avoid looking in the mirror. Sometimes they have to set a timer. They have to be in and out of that bathroom in a certain amount of time. They have to have the lights dimmed. And then they also have, I put visuals up. So visual, for me, that's part of the behavioral aspect, changing the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in the bathroom could be the list of things they have to do. Wash your hands for 20 seconds, dry them off, leave the
Right.
bathroom, whatever it is. And then I also have what I have in my book. It's called the signal plan. And so I print out actual signals, red, yellow, green. And they look at that, because once they start to pick their face, they see the signal, stop. Yellow,
Wow.
make a choice. I have to make a healthy choice. Green, take a deep breath and get the heck out of there.
Lori, I like that. You, you you caught me on the part about set a timer, and I was like, wait a minute, that actually would work on a lot of things. If we're overthinking things, I can. Let's say if I'm going to watch the news today. Okay, let's say I want to watch the news. I can set a timer. Okay, Travis, you can watch the news twice a week, because if I know if it's depressing me, or if it
Yeah.
has me feeling down, I'll set a timer to how many days a week I'll watch the news. And it's not that I don't want to be informed. I don't want to be overwhelmed.
I
So
get it. I get it, Travis.
and I had to do that because I said, okay, if I can be informed but not overwhelmed, and that's what we want the news for, right? We want to be informed but not overwhelmed, and so triggers. If I'm hearing correct, triggers begin to come and occur when we have overwhelming thoughts about certain things, and they spark a certain behavior or response from us.
Well, certain people, they have an actual physical reaction to situations. I've
Correct.
had in, so if you have somebody that's experiencing, so there's a difference between anxiety and panic attacks. If
Right.
you're having I've had people come to see me where they've been in the ER several times, and the doctor is saying, look, there is nothing physically wrong with you. Yes, you have increased heart rate. Yes, you
Hmm.
feel dizzy and confused, but these are physical symptoms that you're experiencing because of your anxiety.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah. And then I've also had, what's interesting is in my book, there's a case in there where I explain about conversion disorder. And conversion disorder, I've been doing this for over 20 years, close to 25 years, and I've only had two cases of conversion disorder. Conversion disorder is similar to a panic attack, except the individual actually believes that they are having a seizure, or they go paralyzed, or they go blind. So, uh, physiologically, they really believe they can't walk.
Oh wow.
And it's the anxiety that's produced this symptom. Isn't that amazing?
Our minds can have a physical reaction to what we think.
Yes.
Jeez. You just, jeez. You may have just saved somebody's life with that. I mean, that's mind blowing to think that what I think can play out in my body, how I think, the way I'm perceiving and processing things, the way my will play out in my physical body in a physical form that otherwise wouldn't exist.
It really is amazing. And especially the one case of conversion disorder that I have in my book,
Hmm.
that individual in particular sent me a text a few weeks ago and said they had just finished their first semester at college and they just wanted to thank me for everything. And if you read the book, you'll see this individual couldn't walk when they came to see me, and
Wow.
it just incredible, really incredible story. And the mom was so relieved because now she's hearing, she knows what to do because she was a contributing factor.
Oh
She
wow.
was, to the equation, the dynamics of what was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was actually very grateful to be given a specific plan. This is how you handle the situation. This is what you're
Right.
supposed to do. And so
Right.
it was a relief for her because she didn't know what to do.
Wow. Amazing. And it changed not only that individual's life but the parent's life,
Oh
the
yeah,
person around them. So they went
most
from having a
definitely.
child who wasn't able to walk, you know, that was walking, that was now able to be mobile.
And go
That's
to college and do great and get their driver's license. I mean, it's amazing.
triggers, guys. Triggers. Trigger happy. So let me ask you something. So I understand now what triggers are. I understand how they can impact me. Are there ways to help us um identify when these triggers are at work? Because sometimes we could just be oblivious. We kind of like the fly in the fly trap. We don't know we're being trapped. All that fly knows is it's enjoying the plant, it's enjoying the moment, so to speak. It's in the moment. Are there ways to help us identify when these triggers are at work?
Yes, and Travis, most people don't realize that they will be able to identify it.
Hmm.
What I like, what I give people, and I have all of this in the workbook in the back of my book. It's called ABC data: antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So let's say your child is going to the office a lot, the nurse's office, and she
Hmm.
wants to go home from school every day. And you're thinking, what is going on? At first, you thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with her stomach. You take her to
Correct.
the
Correct.
doctor. They say nothing's wrong. And then the school's like, hey, we got to do something because your daughter's missing a lot of school and we really want to get a handle on this. And then you ask the teacher, could you do me a favor and take this ABC data and I will take it as well? So, what is the behavior? The teacher says, well, the behavior is she holds her stomach. She says her head hurts and her stomach hurts. So I send her to the office. What happened just before she had a stomach ache? What is the antecedent to
Hmm.
that behavior?
I
And the
like
teacher
that.
writes down, we just got back from lunch and we're ready to start math. Math. So then what is a consequence to her stomach ache? I send her to the office and then you come and pick her up and take her home. Well, we
Oh
analyze the
wow.
data and what do we see? Does she have how's she doing in math? She's not doing very well. So maybe she needs a tutor, maybe she has a learning disability. How can we help her be successful in math so
Right.
this anxiety and stomach ache will go away?
I like that. I like it. This is in the back of your book.
Yes, yes.
Getting your book. Getting your book, Lori. I am getting your book. I told you that already. I'm getting your book. Uh that man, that explains why I never liked math. Why I always had a headache in math in high school.
It's
I kid you
possible.
not. I promise you. I always come math time, I always had a headache. And I thought I was just trying to get out of work, but now I understand it wasn't.
No, and a lot of times, Travis, anxiety is exhibited in a different way for everybody. It doesn't look the same for every, two people could be experiencing anxiety. One is pacing back and forth like a nervous wreck, and the other one is just sitting there and not saying anything. But if you ask a person that isn't saying anything, they may tell you, I have these racing thoughts. I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid if I said something, it would be the wrong thing. And then you would think I wasn't bright, so we don't know what they're thinking. They're both experiencing anxiety.
Wow.
Most times children will experience anxiety in a physical ailment, either a stomach ache or a headache. That's most common.
Wow. Guys, I don't know about you, but this information that Laurie is sharing with us is like mind blowing. And to think that there are triggers that we all have, things that we, and I think you and I was talking before we got on the air, and you mentioned that some things, guys, we will always have with us until we leave this. And I'm glad you said that to me earlier, because I'm a firm believer that we won't be able to erase everything about us as long as we live. There always will be something about us, and I say simply because the fact that we're human, we are ever evolving things. We haven't encountered everything there is to encounter in the world, so we don't know how we will respond to something we've never experienced. We can only hope or anticipate what our response will be. We don't know, so there are certain things that will always be by our sides.
Well, I like to tell people that whatever your diagnosis is, for example, myself, I have ADHD, and I use it to my advantage, because a lot of people will procrastinate, where I'm like, oh, 50-mile run, sign me up for that. Oh, get my, go back to school and get a master's, sign me up for that. If I had known how many years of schooling, maybe I wouldn't have done it. I don't know. But that quick response of my ADHD is just, I'll do that. I can do that. I'll do that. So I think if you can harness some control, which I've learned over the years, but also how has that served you well in your life? How can you utilize that to help somebody else?
Absolutely. So what others may view as a weakness or as a frailty, learn to use it as a strength. Learn to propel yourself. Learn to use it as a launching pad. And you'll never know how far you go if you don't launch at all. You never
Exactly.
know. You got to at least launch yourself.
Another thing that I just want to say that another part of treatment that I use that is also in the book, if you want to use it, it's called a motivational story. So part of the treatment plan, after they've taken the data, I write a specific plan for them. It entails the signal plan. It entails, stay calm, think positive visuals, and that's in the book as well. But also a motivational story. So this story is supposed to be read at least once a day. I like for individuals to read it twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. But if we use an example, using you as example, Travis, just say, my name is Travis. I'm an adult. I don't know what you have, but I'm an outgoing person and I'm very likable. I have something called, and then whatever your diagnosis is, I have something called anxiety, but it doesn't define who I am.
I like that.
Right? I am good at, but I want to improve on, and this is how I'm going to do it. The next time I feel anxious, I'm going to think of the color red. I'm going to stop whatever negative thoughts I have. I'm going to replace it with something positive. I'm going to make a choice, make a healthy choice to think of something positive, and green, go. So in the book, there's a fill in the blank. So it's really easy to use, where you can write your own motivational story. You can have your own visual aids. I always think it's helpful if we have to be passionate about something,
Correct. Absolutely.
What are you passionate about? What brings you joy? because those are the things you want to think about and start doing more often.
Absolutely. I tell myself that when I'm talking to somebody, I say, uh, just that you got to find something that motivates you, that drives you, that makes you. Yeah, so when you're hungry, hunger drives you. What is the hunger that you have for your life? What do you want? What is your passion? What is the thing that makes you go, you know what? I could do that. I want to do that. Let me do that. Let me do it. You think about it a lot and you want to achieve it. It's not a magic button. Yeah, it's going to require some time and some effort, but what is it that makes you want to do what do you want to do? And I absolutely agree with that 100%, Laurie. I absolutely agree with that 100%. We gotta have a passion behind us
And I
as
think
humans.
and I think setting goals for ourselves is a good thing. I'm very goal oriented, whatever
Absolutely.
that is. Right? Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know what I do? I learned this. I learned when I set a goal. I learned to me, my goal becomes real when I set a date to it. Because if I don't
Exactly.
set a date to it, it's just out there and I won't. But if I set a date to it, then all of a sudden I go, "Oh, I got a date. I just can't, I gotta do this. It's a date. It's on the calendar at a certain time." And and to me, if I don't set a date because I think, well, it's okay. I'll get to it. I'm kind of get to it when I get to it kind of guy sometimes. But if there's a date, oh no, I gotta do it. It's a date on it. And so when you set a goal, I put a date behind it. That's when it becomes real to me. That's when I begin working on it. That's when I began either researching what I need to research or whatever I need to do. But that's when the goal becomes real. So if we set a goal, put a date behind it.
And I agree with you 100%. Typically, I'll have the individuals I work with. I don't use the iPhone calendar only because I do have ADHD and I have to look at everything in front of me. So I write everything in my book, like you're saying, whether it's setting a goal. Okay, so if I set, for example, writing the book, right? If I set a goal to write a book, I will block out certain times. This is when I'm going to work on it.
Correct.
This is when I'm going to work on it so that I have an end date in mind.
Correct. I do the exact same thing. I'll start my day and I go, okay, my first 30 minutes of my morning, I'm going to do my treadmill and listen to something motivational. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm consistent on that like 4 days a week. That nonstop. I'm going to do this. Nothing else is going to interfere with that because I have to have that routine in my head in order to accomplish my goal. Absolutely, guys. Trigger happy, guys. So let me ask you this. All right, we know what triggers are. We know how to identify our triggers when we in the middle of them, and what's triggering us. So let me ask you this: when we talk about being trigger happy, right? When we talk about being trigger happy, is there anything we can do about that? Because a lot of times we are that Venus flytrap. We're quick to snap on people, or quick to have this emotional response or this behavioral response. Is there anything that we can do?
Well, you have to break the pattern. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to practice. Like I said, you have the ABC data. We've identified what the antecedent is. You have the motivational story to prepare you, right? I may be trigger happy, but that doesn't define who I am.
Oh, I like that.
Typically, I am trigger happy when somebody talks about politics. I'm just throwing that out there. I must remember, if somebody wants to talk about politics, I will say, I appreciate your input, but I'd rather not talk about that. So you have an
Mm,
alternative behavior and you're going to practice that behavior, right? So, and if they say, why don't you want to talk about it? I can say, it's not good for my health. Let's talk about sports. Let's talk about
absolutely.
anything else. And you can have ideas that you're going to talk about. And more than likely, the other person will say, okay, let's talk about that. So
I
you
like that.
have to, yeah. So in your motivational story, you're going to practice your replacement behavior. And then it even helps if you have a partner, if you can role play a scenario and you exchange, you interchange roles. Like
Correct.
let's say your wife says, okay, we're going to practice now. And then you say, okay. So first you read your story to prime yourself for the situation. And then your wife says, hey, did you see the news today? This is what happened. I cannot believe it's happening. And then Travis will say, you know what, honey? I really don't want to talk about politics right now. Let's talk about how beautiful the day was and what we're going to do
Absolutely.
tomorrow as a family. And then you practice, then she changes roles, and then she is you and you're her. So it gives you practice. The more that you practice, the better you're going to be in the moment, and you won't get caught in that fly trap.
Wow. Guys, listen. I don't know about you, but I've been caught in enough fly traps. Enough fly traps. I want to show a quick video, guys, when we get ready to get out of here. Watch this quick video, guys. See that? We get
Yep.
caught, but there are ways to get out. And that's what you just said. I wanted to show that last part because we don't have to be trapped.
Don't take
We
the bait. Don't take the
don't
bait.
take the bait. We don't have to be caught in it. I know it looks good, but we don't have to get caught in it. Guys, Laurie has been alluding to her book. And she's been alluding to her book. And when I ran across the book, the title was very interesting to me. I'm going to throw up the book here, guys. Here it is. You're not crazy, living with anxiety, obsessions, and fetishes. And I asked you earlier, and I know people who didn't have the privilege of listening to our conversation. What made you come up with that title for your book?
Well, I wanted people to know, a lot of times people will come into my office and they're afraid that they're the worst case I've ever seen. I mean, have you
Mm.
ever seen anybody as bad as me or with
Oh, wow.
behaviors like mine? And I tell them, I've seen just about everything. So don't worry, you're not crazy. We'll work on this together. And I wanted to pick, there's 6 different case studies in the book. And I wanted to give a wide variety of case studies and kind of normalize things, to read it with compassion, each case, because they are real cases. They're real people. I changed, the gender. I changed
Right,
kind of the
right.
scenario. But for the most part, they're real, you
Oh,
know.
wow. I'm gonna be honest with you, Lori. The title of the book grabs me because a lot of us will feel that way. We feel like we're the worst case scenario to anything. We make a
Right.
mistake. I'm the worst at that. One mistake automatically makes us the worst, or how we think and we may be the worst because we aren't normal, whatever that is now. After
Yes.
after after this pandemic, if there's any unnormal thing now, but a lot of times people feel this way, like the title of your book. You're not crazy, and they won't voice it. We won't say it. So we live in this world like that fly. We're trapped, by that Venus flytrap. We trapped by our triggers. We trapped by things, and we just can't get out.
Well, we're trapped by our negative thoughts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look at the fly. He couldn't get out until he changed his mind. He got out.
That's right.
He didn't just succumb to the thing closing him in. He got out. Let me ask you a question. So real quick before we get out of here,
Mhm.
what are some tips you can provide to listeners and those who are watching about what we can do to improve our behaviors and ways to becoming our best selves? What are some tips you can provide?
Well, first, I want everybody to know that you're not alone. No matter how stuck you are, there's a
Absolutely.
yeah, you can move forward. You have a choice in life. You can stay stuck or you can try to move forward. And if you move forward, I'm sure there's a support team, even if it's just one other person you can confide in, that will help you take those steps to move forward. There has to be hope. That's the first thing. There has to be hope.
Wow, guys, you can stay stuck or you can try to move forward. Guys, it doesn't get any better than that. I'm going to put up your web address right there. Now, you have your own practice. Am I correct, Laurie? And where are you
Yes.
located?
I'm located in Camarillo, California. And like I said, I started off barely graduating high school, and now I have a contract with the county where we're serving over 100 individuals with developmental disabilities. And then we have other individuals that are just experiencing anxieties, phobias, OCD. So we're doing a lot of good for the community.
That's just amazing. Your story alone is inspiring to let people know that I don't have to stay trapped in this thing. I don't have to remain trigger happy. Guys, Laurie Singer Behavioral.com. Guys, if you're in California, check her out. And my gosh, I'm in Alabama, so I'm not near you. But I'm definitely getting the book. The title again speaks to me. So I'm definitely going to get that. I love that. Before we get out of here, guys, I got to do this because if I don't do this, Laurie, people will ask me, well, why didn't you do that, Travis? Because you do this all the time. Why didn't you do it this time? So I got to do this. So otherwise, I won't be getting emails and text messages. So let me get that there. And I'm going to do this right here and get ready to close us out of here. There we go, guys. All right, guys, listen. It's been an absolute blast speaking with Laurie Singer today, guys. She's amazing. So glad she joined the show today, guys. Look, don't forget to visit our Facebook page. That's Tell Me Something Good with the capital T. Laurie, thank you so much for joining the show today. We are so happy. Thank you for all the great information that you shared. Guys, listen. Each week, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, you can watch us right here at TMG, or you can stream on your favorite music podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and so many more. Guys, before we get out of here, as always, if you're going to tell me something good. I'm out of here. I got to go. Peace.